The story starts when a company called WB Lab discovers the existence of extremergy fluid. Extremergy fluid is defined as a highly dense energy that exists in a fluid state. Upon reading WB's publication about extremergy fluid, an idealistic scientist named Elara Shelley believes that she can basically use it to achieve world peace. She gets hired by Mantis Corporation, another company that researches extremergy fluid. However, when she finds out that Mantis intends to use her research for military weapons, she quits, as that goes directly against her visions and ideals. Luckily for her, she's not unemployed for very long. Her talents were noticed by Jeremiah Greenbelt, the research director at WB Lab. Since WB Lab's philosophy for extremergy fluid are the same as hers, as in, they both want to use it to eradicate war and poverty and achieve world peace, she happily joins the WB research team. Besides Elara and Jeremiah, there are 3 other members of the WB research team: Sirius Grant, Harper Turner, and Asuka Middleton. As a member of the tight-knit team, she develops close relationships with all the other researchers. In particular, she becomes especially close friends with Sirius, who seem to quickly fall in love with her. However, Elara herself seems to have a crush on Jeremiah, and it's implied that Sirius is aware of this. But either way, the group got along well, and the guys even threw her a party on her first anniversary of being a researcher at WB. Sadly, the rom-com elements of the story stop here. To actually make use of the powerful extremergy fluid, it seems like it had to be stabilized first. The team hits a major bottleneck in their research to stabilize it, and tensions are now pretty high due to the lack of progress. Sirius then makes a big discovery. If a sentient being is fused together with extremergy fluid, it may stabilize. He first tells Elara, and she realizes how dangerous his discovery could be. She then sets up a meeting with the other researchers, telling them about the discovery and hoping that they would be able to find a better way. However, Jeremiah and Harper don't seem to realize the dangers of this method. Desperate for any sort of progress, they instead plan to start experiments using this method against Sirius and Elara's wishes. It seems that Asuka didn't participate on either side of this argument. Elara was adamant in her unwillingness to hurt any living creature in the name of scientific progress, and so she breaks off from the team. Sirius, who agreed, also breaks off from the team to join her. The 2 of them together now aim to find a method to stabilize extremergy fluid without the sacrifice of a life. They believe that if they have results to show from an alternative method, Jeremiah would give up on the bad method and use the newfound method instead. They do eventually succeed in reaching a high level of energy stability, and Elara plans to tell Jeremiah of their findings. At the same time, Jeremiah, Harper, and Asuka continue to work on the bad method. Jeremiah discovers that Elara would be a near-perfect candidate to be fused with extremergy fluid. That is, he believes that if he fuses her with extremergy fluid, the resulting energy form would be stable. Although he cared deeply about her, he decided to cast his personal feelings aside and prioritize the completion of his research. What happens next is pretty plainly shown in the true ending cutscene. Elara and Jeremiah meet in his lab. She tries to convince him to stop his current experiments, but he shoves her into the machine and kills her, which fuses her soul to the extremergy fluid. The fusion was a success, and he has created the extremergy life form. When Sirius hears that the person he loved was so horribly betrayed, he is justifiably enraged. He quits working for WB Lab. Sometime after Elara is killed, WB and Mantis merge into one company. The company sends a fleet into space and appoints Jeremiah as the commander. An AI named Dylan is also developed, and Dylan serves as both security to the ship and assistant to the researchers. Before the fleet takes off, Sirius somehow sneaks onto the ship with one goal: to avenge Elara by killing off the 3 researchers who had a hand in her death. While the fleet is out in space, during an experiment with the extremergy lifeform, something goes horribly wrong. The energy actually wasn't stabilized, and Elara had no hope of being able to control it. The extremergy lifeform dealt a massive amount of damage. The explosion was apparently so powerful that the entire fleet got knocked into another space-time continuum. They also crashed onto a planet where the inhabitants were living and destroyed almost all of their habitat. Everyone on the fleet is now in a state of panic, and Jeremiah has to find a way to jump back to the original space-time continuum. Dylan is keeping the extremergy lifeform suppressed in a small container. Meanwhile, Sirius sees this as a good time to start executing his plan. He hacks into Dylan's security protocols to make sure that his targets cannot be tracked. Also, Harper is carrying out research on restabilizing the extremergy lifeform. He finds a purple plant native to the inhabitants' planet that could possibly be effective, as it can control the nervous system. The inhabitants' lifespans are extended due to symbiosis with the plant, but humans would die and turn into zombies if exposed to the plant. To try and make humans immune to the plant's effects, he creates some chimeras, fusing human children and inhabitants together. Of course, to force the inhabitants to cooperate with these experiments, the human used military violence as depicted by some of the murals. While the fleet's crew is working on making yet another extremergy lifeform, Sirius starts to carry out his plan. First, he finds Asuka and swiftly kills him. Next, he finds Harper and kills him as well. Unfortunately, a stray bullet hits the glass containing a large purple flower. Spores start to spread among the ship, and any human exposed to them becomes a zombie. Dylan was supposed to be able to recognize and quarantine this infection, but because of what Sirius did earlier, Dylan is unable to detect anything. On the other side, Jeremiah is becoming more and more desperate to return to the original space-time continuum. He's now ordering test subjects to be turned into raw matter fluid, defined as a type of matter that is basically able to emulate all other types of matter. In other words, people are being turned into resources for the ship. Just as Elara warned before, the number of sacrifices did go way beyond what he imagined. He also becomes aware that there is an intruder on the ship who messed with Dylan's security system, and that an infection is happening. To protect himself from the spores, Sirius hides in a secluded room on the ship while he plans to take out his last target, the one directly responsible for killing Elara. Tragically, the spores end up spreading to that room, and Sirius dies before he is able to find and kill Jeremiah. At this point, the infection has spread so much that evacuation is now necessary. To prepare for evacuation, Jeremiah gives Dylan a list of people to save, where any crew not on that list is to be killed. The list included Asuka and Harper, but it's unknown if it included anyone else. He asks Dylan to protect the research on the ship, as it's crucial for returning to the original space-time, and promises to come back to the ship after the spores dissipate. He also seals the extremergy lifeform into the final termination weapon so that it cannot do any more damage while he's gone. After that, he evacuates the ship, and that's the last we see of him. Sometime after he leaves, Elara wakes up inside the final termination weapon. Since having to exist as the extremergy lifeform is incredibly painful, she wishes for a way to escape. She starts creating slimes with the goal of breaking her out of the weapon, but each slime she creates is at the cost of a part of her memory. It seems that she can make about 1 slime per year, and the first 30 slimes she made all failed to reach her. This is where the story of Mo finally begins. Mo is the 31st slime. By the time Elara creates Mo, she has lost so much of her memory that she couldn't remember who she was or any other details about the ship. And in order to create Mo, she sacrificed her memories of the people who betrayed her. This is why when Mo gets close enough to her in Chapter 5 to form the link, she is overcome with rage and the desire for revenge without knowing any context of what happened before and after she was killed. However, Mo is able to return all of her memories to her. After getting her memories back and merging with Mo, Elara realizes that it's too late to do anything. Revenge wouldn't free her from her eternal suffering, and she wouldn't be happy to destroy even more innocent life as collateral in killing Jeremiah. It also wouldn't erase all the harm that extremergy fluid has done to people and the inhabitants. Finally able to find some kind of peace in recovering the memories of her life, her soul is freed from the extremergy fluid. Mo is left alone for now, but don't worry, he's alive and well. So that's the plot. The story of Mo Astray is an amazingly written tragedy where many things could have possibly gone better if even the slightest circumstances were different. As a closing statement, I'll bring up some unanswered questions. What exactly are these infected alien creatures, and who is their god? What are they planning? Did they influence the humans at all? Jeremiah never returned to the ship, but he is implied to be alive, so what happened to him?